You know that meme that says January will make you feel every single day? I guess that's kind of true because this month I read 9 books. That is way more than I normally read. Normally I read 4 to 5 books a month. Amazing. So reading 9 books in a month is pretty crazy, and I think that has to do with January literally feeling like the longest month of the entire year. So I wanted to kind of go through the books that I read this month, give you my ratings, let you know if I recommend them or not. Also, this is in no particular order. I actually don't remember what order I read any of these books in. We'll start with the Kindle. So on my Kindle, I actually signed up for Kindle Unlimited just for the month of January. So the first book that I read this month was One Dark Window, and I actually read it on Kindle Unlimited. So One Dark Window follows Elspeth Spindle. She basically got infected with the illness when she was a child, and she's been keeping it contained into herself. Nobody knows that she was infected. The story continues, and her uncle actually gets invited to the kingdom. He basically trades one of his Providence cards for his daughter if his daughter gets wed and becomes an heir. While Elspeth is in the kingdom, she runs into Raven Yu. They kind of can tell that Elspeth has some type of magic. She has a Providence card that they want, and the story basically continues from there. They have to collect all 12 Providence cards to break the curse and to get rid of this illness, because the monster in Elspeth's head and everybody who is infected, they slowly deteriorate the more they use their magic. If I'm being completely honest, I was very confused the first half of the book. I thought it was very, very slow, and I didn't know what was happening. I actually gave this book a 4 out of 5 stars. I actually read the second book as well, and the second book is called Two Twisted Crowns. Two Twisted Crowns kind of just finishes off the first book. It kind of answers all the questions that you might have in the first book. The first book was very slow. The second book was very fast. It kind of felt like she didn't answer anything in the first book, so she kind of had to cram it all in the second one. That's kind of all I have to say about that duology. I don't know. It was good. Confusing. I enjoyed the read in the moment, but not that memorable. I just don't think it lives up to the TikTok hype. The next book I read is Pineapple Street by Jenny Jackson. This book is very different for me. This is just a regular fiction book. I typically lean towards romances, or now I'm kind of getting into fantasy. This book basically follows around 3 different women in New York: Darlie, Sasha, and Georgiana. Darlie and Georgiana are sisters, and Sasha is the sister-in-law. I really enjoyed this read. I thought it was really cute. If you're looking for something with like a big plot, I will say this is kind of lackluster. It's just a cute read. There's not like anything crazy going on in this book, but if you're just looking for something sweet and short, this is a good book to read. I rated this a 3.5 on Goodreads. The next book I read was Things We Hide from the Light by Lucy Score. I really did not like this book at all. I thought that I would like this book. All 3 of these books are an interconnected series. There's kind of like a subplot going through all 3 of these books, while there's also the romance aspect in every book. And this book is actually about the brother. His name is Nash. I just thought it was really lengthy and boring. I don't know. I just really didn't think a romance needed to be 600 pages. I'm giving this a 2 out of 5 stars. They didn't even get to the first date until 400 pages in. 400 pages? What are you doing? Like, it's fine if it's a slow burn. I personally love slow burns, but this is like extra slow. Like, there's no reason. I wouldn't even consider this a slow burn. There's a literal spice in it, maybe not even 100 pages in. I did enjoy the first book though. I did enjoy the first book. This book though, sadly, I'm gonna have to pass on it.
So the next 2 books are part of a series called Once Upon a Broken Heart. And I actually read the first book, Once Upon a Broken Heart, back in December. So in the month of January, I finished the last 2 books, The Ballad of Never After and A Curse for True Love. So that's kind of where I get into, and I was kind of explaining it really bad. Hopefully that makes sense.
This is the first book, Once Upon a Broken Heart. For the month of January, I read these 2 books. The Ballad of Never After by Stephanie Garber. There are just so many plot twists in this book. There is a lot of tension between Jax and Evangeline, and you kind of get to see both of them kind of bond more and kind of that slow burn romance. So I think that's why I really enjoyed this book. And I also read the last book, A Curse for True Love, and this book is really good too. This is the third book. Jax kind of runs away from Evangeline from what happens in the second book. And in the third book, she has feelings for him and she wants to, let him know. My favorite quote from this third book is, "Once upon a time, there was nothing but kissing and everything was perfect. And there was even more kissing." So the entire series as a whole, I'm gonna give a 4 out of 5 stars. I don't know, I recommend the entire series. It is a young adult fantasy romantasy series, and it takes place after the Caraval series. So if you haven't read Caraval by Stephanie Garber, which is her first series, I recommend reading that just so you kind of understand where Jax comes from and things like that. So really enjoyed these. The next book that I read was Nothing Like the Movies by Lynn Painter. I actually read this in one sitting. This book is about Wes and Liz. It's the sequel to Better Than the Movies. It follows Liz and Wes on their way to college, but they break up. And the reason why they break up is because Wes has something really big that happens in his life. Liz kind of tries to work it out with him, but he won't let her. And so they break up, and they're broken up for like 2 years. And this book kind of follows him trying to win her back. Liz kind of is really annoyed with Wes because he kind of just left her like out of nowhere, and she didn't understand what she did wrong. She was so heartbroken. When he finally comes back to college, he has this plan to win her over, and she's like, "I don't want to see you anymore. I don't want to be with you." But they kind of find their way back together, and they kind of bond over, the reason why they broke up. And there's a little bit of miscommunication. That is my least favorite trope out of any type of book, but it wasn't miscommunication in a way that was annoying. It was just it was very understandable the reason why he didn't communicate everything to begin with. My favorite quote in Nothing Like the Movies are when Wes says, "I exist to exist alongside you. I exist to exist alongside you." I just love a Lynn Painter book. All of her books make me laugh. They're all so funny and witty. I recommend this one. The next book that I read was Swift and Saddled by Lila Sage. I read this book in one sitting as well. I was just going crazy that weekend apparently, and I just wanted to challenge myself to read 2 books. Ada comes to town. She is an interior designer. Wes actually hires her because he is redoing their house on their ranch that they live on. In the first chapter, Ada meets Wes at a bar, and she doesn't actually know that he's the one who hired her for the ranch. And she's kind of feeling a little wild and a little crazy. She's in a small town, and she ends up flirting with him a little bit, and she doesn't find out until the next day that he's actually her boss. I thought it was a really cute book. I loved how there wasn't a third act breakup. If you want a book with no third act breakup, this is the book for you. There was kind of a little bit where she literally is like, "Oh, I can't do this," but then like not even a couple pages later, she's like, "Oh, never mind, I'm back." I did really like that because honestly, when you're reading a third act breakup in every freaking book, it gets annoying. The last book I read in the month of January is The Wedding People by Allison Esbat. This book I just finished today. The main character, her name is Phoebe, and the book follows Phoebe around. She goes to this hotel in Newport. She wants to just get away and spend a night there. When she checks in, she realizes there's a wedding there, but she's not gonna let that bother her. She has her plan on what she's there to do at the hotel. She basically goes around like kind of analyzing all the wedding people. The bride actually comes up to her and she just thinks like, "Oh, you're here for the wedding." She tells the bride eventually, she's like, "I'm not here for the wedding." And the bride's like, "You have to be. I made sure that every room in this hotel was booked out for my wedding guests." And she was like, "Well, I'm here." The bride, her name is Lila. Lila kind of befriends Phoebe and kind of deters Phoebe from doing what she went to the hotel to plan to do. I gave this book a 5 out of 5 stars. I think it's really worth the hype, and I recommend everybody to read this book. So these were all the books that I read this month. I think it was a really good reading month. January definitely feels like the longest month ever. Okay, that's it. If you read any of these books, please let me know what you think about them. I would love to know your opinions. Yeah. Okay.